back. I'm Jim LaPierre. This is Sober Now, and today's topic is I'm sober, now what? As always, welcome your questions and comments. Just enter the chat pane in any of the streams that we have going today. If you haven't already been over there, head over to Sober Now's Facebook page. Give it a quick like so you can get notified about future live streams and other content we're creating. Would love to hear what's going on with you today. How is your recovery progressing? Let's just jump into this. Of course, we honor all pathways to recovery. Sobriety for some is an awesome first step. To me, the difference between recovery and sobriety is that sobriety is more about what you don't do, and recovery is more about what you do and the life that you live. Recovery is about building a better life, and this is what I hope we're working towards as folks get sober, as they do MAT or harm reduction or whatever your pathway is, but to start making some conscious choices and some investments. Recovery is about healing. It's about building better connections to self, to kindred spirits, to friends and family, and ideally to a higher power. Recovery is about moving from isolation and loneliness, moving away from that and toward being part of something that's greater than self, whether that be a family, a fellowship, a collection of people with common goals and purpose. It's about creating a more fulfilling life, and this is a huge undertaking, of course. So many changes occur when we get sober. Your health improves almost immediately. Even after a week, folks usually start feeling better, and it's really incredible. After about 30 days, you can see just this enormous change in a person's appearance. It looks like they've come back to life. Their skin, their appearance, everything looks more healthy, more vibrant. Of course, after a short period of sobriety, we usually notice that our mind sharpens, our short-term memory improves, our ability to process verbal and written information improves. We're able to be more present. And we typically start developing better insight and achieve more clarity. Of course, the problem with clarity is that often we begin to see the wreckage that our lives became through active substance use disorder, and this is usually overwhelming. And it's a big part of why we chose this topic for today. When we're overwhelmed, we don't know what to start, and that begets the question, now what? This, of course, the overwhelming sensation of what is my life, where am I going, what is it that I need to attend to, coincides with what my friends in recovery usually refer to as thawing out. And the way to best explain this is that the good thing about being sober is that you feel more, and of course the bad thing about being sober is you feel more. Dealing with emotions in early recovery is one of the most important lessons we can learn. And what we're really doing is working to identify specifically what is it that we're feeling, because we spent years avoiding and numbing. So quite honestly, it can be really challenging for us to even get a sense of what's going on with me. We need to implement some basic coping skills, grounding skills, things that help us be more connected to the here and now. Even really simple things like breathing exercises, noticing how stress and emotion manifests in our bodies can take us a really long way. Most of us have been fighting losing battles for self-control, and being able to notice just something as basic as what's happening with your body is a healthier form of self-control. Your physical self is the first layer of self-control, and after we've noticed our breathing, noticed our heart rate, noticed tension in the body, that's when we can start doing things that are adaptive. And then we can focus on what is it I'm feeling, what is it I need to do to cope, what is it, and usually the best question is, who should I reach out to? Who are the people in my life that can support me with this? We need to learn how to take what overwhelms us and break it down into small and manageable pieces. Too often, especially when we're anxious, when we're stressed, we start getting what I call a case of the what ifs. So we think about things that could go wrong, and then what if that leads to something that's even worse, and then what if, and in very short order, what we have are a series of things that, first of all, haven't happened yet, may never happen, but we have a tendency to think to the point of fear, and that shuts us down. We too easily become overwhelmed, and so we need to have the support of others. We need to cope in ways that are adaptive, and we need to essentially release before we start seeking solutions. I think the most important difference between sobriety and recovery is, again, allowing ourselves support. What we can do alone is really limited. What we can do together is so much greater. I hear from people all the time, I have people that are there if I need them. And my response is always, I need all the support I can get on my good days. Waiting until we're down is a really bad way to go about this for a million different reasons. Having support and utilizing it helps us not get down or not get so far down in the first place. Reaching out is hard and it's uncomfortable. The more we're struggling, the more it feels like we should withdraw, isolate, the more it feels like using is the only reasonable thing to do. Going outside of our comfort zone is hard, and if we wait until we're really struggling to reach out, we're making things harder for ourselves. We need to conceptualize this support as something that we use not just for problems, but to facilitate growth. We need to think about support as something that helps us achieve goals and dreams. It's not something that we only use for problems. Support fosters accountability, which improves our follow-through about 10,000%. Support means that we don't have to reinvent the wheel, and it means becoming open to learning from others. We all, tend to bemoan our trust issues, but it really doesn't require trust to take a suggestion or to just listen to what worked well for someone else. Recovery is often about admitting what we don't know and asking to be taught. Recovery is very much a process of growing up, and the less we hide, the more we get to grow. Managing responsibilities and taking care of our side of the street are important pieces to recovery. It allows us to start noticing opportunities in every area of our life and in every role that we play. It allows us to become better partners, better parents. It allows us to become better friends, better family. It allows us to become better employees. It facilitates potentially growth in every single part of our lives. But the key is to be genuinely humble, to be open to suggestions, to be willing to learn. And I think for so many of us, we get so used to hiding so many things, and we get used to bullshitting and pretending that we understand or pretending that we know what we're doing. And again, all of this is terribly self-limiting. Growing in recovery allows us to show up, to be fully present for others, for people that we love and care about, instead of being absent or checked out. Learning to really, really listen well is a great thing to do in early recovery. I think that for most people, listening really just means that they're thinking about what they're going to say when it's their turn to talk. The very basic dynamics and skills of life and relationships are some of the most vital things for us to learn because, again, we're growing up emotionally. And we're learning about what works, and we're unlearning what was taught to us by unhealthy people, typically in our family of origins. And we're unlearning habits that we developed in active substance use disorder. Recovery is awkward. It needs to be embraced as such. Trying to avoid things that make us feel anxious or uncomfortable closes so many doors that are really worth walking through. It's important to keep at the forefront of your thoughts that if you're around people in recovery, they remember what it feels like to be early on in this process. They know what social anxiety feels like. The more self-conscious and awkward we are Typically, we forget that other people know what that feels like. The impact of shame and guilt makes us feel like we're probably the worst of the worst. It makes us feel like no one should ever have to be patient with us. We're probably imposing, and what we're looking for is, how do I make this terrible, anxious feeling go away? And so, too often, again, we withdraw, we deny ourselves opportunities, and we forget that it helps other people to help us. Ideally, one of the next steps in recovery is learning how to be patient with ourselves. Too many of us feel like we need to make up for lost time, which absolutely does not work. It's amazing to me that it may have taken us 5, 10, 20, 30 years to get here, but we'd like to be all better by Tuesday. Learning to be patient with ourselves is especially hard. It means learning about manageability and sustainability. But just the very act of cutting yourself some slack is something that's very foreign for a lot of us. To be patient with someone is an act of kindness. And for most of us, learning to be kind to ourselves is not something that was instilled. It's not something that is familiar to us. Sobriety has a wonderful impact, or I should say an opportunity to impact our attitude. When folks are only sober and not working to otherwise change or transform their lives, they're usually fairly miserable. Because for them, getting sober took away their biggest problem, but all of their other problems and all of their other challenges and deficits and weaknesses remain. And no more really certain how to deal with those things. With recovery, your attitude should be viewed as a daily choice. And my suggestion is always to start from a place of gratitude. I love hearing from folks how great it is to wake up without a hangover. I love hearing with someone that they spoke with someone today who's homeless, and it reminded them that they can be grateful because they have a warm place to live. Gratitude is a really great spiritual practice. Some of the most successful people I know in recovery make it a point to take a couple of minutes each day and make a gratitude list. What's good in my life? What are the things that I can take stock of and have appreciation for? One of the most unfortunate things about us as humans is that when something stays the same for a long enough period of time, we typically just stop thinking about it. And so we fail to appreciate and we fail to celebrate very basic things, like that all of my life needs are met, that I am never concerned about where my next meal is coming from, or whether or not I will be able to get my basic life needs met. These are easy things to take for granted. It is a choice not to take them for granted. And these are all things that I think all people know, but relatively few practice. And the beautiful thing about recovery, it's like when I hear someone refer to themselves as a grateful alcoholic. It's not that anyone is grateful to have the disease of addiction. It's they're grateful for the ways in which recovery has significantly transformed and changed their lives, all the other opportunities and areas of growth that were unlocked. Viewing recovery as an ongoing series of opportunities, especially for healing. For so many of us, having a significant stretch of recovery means having the opportunity to attend to maybe some medical issues that we just haven't been diligent about. It means having the opportunity to invest in our mental health. And for a very high percentage of us, indeed most of us, it means investing in trauma recovery. My experience is that if a person is really committed to ongoing growth, then we're never really just in one form of recovery. We're in recovery from a substance use disorder, but we're also in recovery from trauma. We're in recovery from mental illness. We're in recovery from eating disorders and self-harm and other types of behavioral addictions. And so the opportunities are many, but it's all dependent upon your perspective and how you look at it. You can take stock and bemoan, I have all of this work to do and all of these changes to make. Um, but conversely, you can look at the opportunity to get better every day. Um, Noticing um, things like your defensiveness and is a great lesson in recovery. Um, Most of us have our guard up even when nobody is attacking us. It's just a default setting for us. It's what we learned in a time where it was necessary, and now the challenge is to stop doing things that used to be necessary, whether because we were living in abuse or an addictive family growing up, or because of all the places that active substance use disorder took us. We learn to have those walls. We learn to have that armor. And walls and armor are heavy. I encourage people to just carry a shield. A shield is light, it's easier to carry, and you only use it when you need it. I point out to folks that we don't really have an on and off switch for our defenses. They tend to be up all the time. And so one of the areas of huge growth that can occur very simply is when we allow someone to be an exception to the rule. When we recognize that somebody accepts us exactly as we are, they're not the one that's looking to attack us, and we can just allow ourselves to kind of relax and let that guard down a little bit. It's never all or nothing. I hear from folks all the time that they need to break their walls down, and honestly, I think that's a bad idea. There are plenty of people and places in the world where it's just not safe to be vulnerable. So have those defenses, but be more aware of self. Notice when you're being attacked, because if we're paying close attention, what we notice is that the person who attacks us the most is ourselves. What we notice is that we have a chip on our shoulder. We have an expectation of being treated poorly, especially by authority figures. And we can get fucked up when somebody says good morning the wrong way, and we're thinking, well, what do you mean by that? So we need to notice what our intuition tells us about what is it that's really happening here. We need to notice our self-talk, catch ourselves attacking ourselves, being highly critical of ourselves. And I never encourage people to go from one extreme to the other. If your self-talk sounds really super critical, if it sounds mean-spirited, I'm not going to say to you, well, gosh, you should give yourself some daily affirmations and love yourself. I would say to you, you have to be respectful. You have to be fair. And we all know how to do those things. We can do them with a complete stranger. But too often, what we're really doing is relating to ourselves as our abusers did. And again, we are still fighting this losing battle for self-control. What I say to folks is, I promise you, you can have far greater self-control through self-acceptance than you could ever have by being mean to yourself, being abusive, or just constantly critical of yourself. Just going to check the streams real quick. Would love to hear from you. What's going on today? What questions do you have, or how can I be helpful? Okay. Things are quiet today. Thank you to folks who wrote in to say hi. Love connecting with each and every one of you. I often encourage folks to catch themselves over-explaining. This is really common in recovery, and what I say to folks is, good people don't really require explanations, and bad people don't really care what they are. We expect to be misunderstood. We expect that people won't get us. And so we feel this need to justify what we're doing. We feel a need to explain and warrant why we want what we want, why we need what we need, or why we feel what we feel. And this is all over-explaining. Again, because we assume that people aren't going to get us. And when people didn't get us in the past, we assumed that we must not be saying it right, or we must not be giving them enough information. It didn't occur to us that the people that we wanted to understand and accept us were very sick or very abusive people. And so learning to be in the moment and a little bit more relaxed allows us to notice, okay, this person it does seem to get me. Making eye contact, noticing nonverbal behavior, really, really listening allows folks to show us, yeah, I get you, I understand you, and I agree with you. Recovery, of course, is an ongoing process. There's no final destination. There's no finish line. Again, I get to be a work in progress every day of my life, which means I can get better every day. The word of caution that I usually offer to folks, I love all of the expressions that folks in 12-step programs use, and referring to the disease of addiction as cunning, baffling, and powerful. Coupling that with the idea, I've often heard people in a 12-step meeting say, well, I'm in here doing everything I can to foster my recovery. My disease is out in the parking lot doing push-ups. So no matter how healthy we become, no matter how strong we are, the disease never goes away. It doesn't lie dormant. It is always scheming and looking for a way to pull us back in. I love the expression that my disease wants me dead, but it'll settle for miserable. And my experience is that one of the most dangerous things that our disease tells us is, you're okay now. Everything's good now. You can relax. And then that insidious line of thinking is, well, maybe I can drink in moderation now. Maybe I can use occasionally now. One of the sickest and most difficult things about addiction is that it gets harder and harder to distinguish what's my thought and what is it that my disease is telling me. So in other words, what is me and what is my disease? That doesn't just go away with sobriety. It doesn't even go away with long-term recovery. So noticing those thoughts, bringing them out into the open, because we have an amazing ability to justify, minimize, and rationalize. We have a great ability to con ourselves, and we are always susceptible to what it is, the ways in which our disease wants to distort perception, wants to exacerbate anything that we're feeling that's painful or difficult. And so we've got to bring things out into the open. We need people that we can bounce things off of, get a reality check from. Just ideally having some people in your life that you can just dump whatever's going on with you, and they'll help you sort it out. I think too often we make the mistake of feeling like we have to really have a thorough understanding of what's going on with us before we can approach somebody else. And I think one of the great things about the people I know in recovery is that I could go to them and just say, look, I'm feeling 12 shades of fucked up, and can you just help me sort this out? And my experience is that always works well. So a few things that I hope that you'll do. I hope that you'll invest in your recovery in whatever pathway you're on, and I hope that you'll connect to me and to other kindred spirits to get what it is that you need. Having a little bit of guidance, having a little bit of support can take us so much further. I hope that gradually you will learn to transform your survival skills into living skills. One of the beautiful things that recovery allows us to do is move from surviving to really living. And to live is uncomfortable. To have freedom and new opportunities is uncomfortable. It's hard to get better. It's scary and uncomfortable to get better. I hope you'll transform your ability to hustle into your ability to achieve healthy goals. I hope that you'll build the life that you most want, build a life that's so great that you wouldn't want to ever risk it by drinking or drugging. And I hope that you'll have a mindset that helps you identify opportunities, because they always exist and they are many. Going to be wrapping up in just a moment. Abby, thank you for joining us today. It's always good to have you here. I would love to connect with each and every one of you. The easiest way to do that is jim@sobernow.com. Email me your questions or the resource that you're looking for. Email me topics that you'd like to see covered in future live streams. Always looking for suggestions, always want to increase this conversation. And if you would be so kind, please help us spread the word. Sober Now's sobernow.com, our program is now completely free. This was a long time in the making. We've put years of work into this, and in recognition of how substance use disorder continues to expand, claim the lives of people that we love, and wanting to do something to make this better. So Sober Now offers 2 home study programs. Both of them are 28 days long. The first one is for people who are seeking to enrich their recovery from substance use disorder, and it's go at your own pace. It's completely confidential. You can do it with complete anonymity. The program is video-based and has some cool resources along with it. The second program is for people like me who identify as affected others, folks who have loved ones in active addiction, and learning how to care for ourselves and our non-addicted family members as we go through something that is very, very difficult and indeed heartbreaking. So I look forward to joining you again soon. I hope that you'll take excellent care of yourselves, and I hope to talk with you soon. Take care.